I don't know. Like, I kind of don't, like, come and follow me. Like, I post content and you can come on the journey, but I don't have anything to give you. But then I was like, well, that's kind of the part that I want to share. Like, I want to be like, this isn't neat. It's not perfect. I am in the middle. It's not clear. But this is part of the business journey as well.
Jemma Broadstock, the ultimate CEO. Welcome to Rad-Ventures, the podcast that takes you on an exhilarating journey through the lives of entrepreneurs and business owners. Great to have you on the show. I'm excited to talk to you. We've mentioned this before, but for the benefit of the listeners and watchers, you're a bit of a hero of mine, but we'll get into that a bit later. So if you could introduce yourself and tell us what it is you do now.
Well, thank you for having me. So my name is Jemma. I am a coach for online business owners. I will say I'm in a bit of a messy middle at the moment with what I have been doing and what I am going to do. So my answer to this question isn't super clear because I'm still figuring it out. But I have a psychology background, so all my coaching is very kind of psychology infused. I go sort of a layer deeper with the mindset work. And my whole thing is I want business owners to be happy. You know, I've ran a business where I felt really unfulfilled, really burnt out, and was giving 100% to everyone else and had nothing left for myself. And so now I really want to help other business owners basically not end up where I was.
Cool. Well, not cool, obviously. Unfortunately, you've been through that, but cool for filling in the answer of who you are and what's your name and where'd you come from. So if we touch on that now, and then we'll go back to what you did at school after that. So the business you're referring to there is Virtually Done, right?
Yeah.
Which is a VA business, which is when I first started my business in February 2020. You know, you hit Instagram and you're like, right, who's cool, who's not, who's the big thing? And you were the big thing then. I can't even remember how many followers you had because it was that long ago. But, you had the most followers of all the VAs. It was like you had all the goss, all the tips, everything. And but as you just said in there, that business didn't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or should I give a little bit of my thoughts on the VA business thing?
Oh, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so for me, I mean, I'm very customer service based. That was my kind of bread and butter. That's how I got into admin. So I'm always fixing problems for people and making them feel good about themselves. And no psychoanalyzing on this one as well. But if you don't say it online. You perhaps later. You give me my diagnosis. But yeah, so for me, it was always fixing problems. You're at the end of the phone, answering calls all day, sometimes up to 100 calls per day, taking orders, fixing things that have gone wrong. And so that's what I used to do. That's why when I went freelance, that's the kind of approach I took. So for me, my role can be very reactive. So I don't some days I don't even know what I'm going to do all day. I've got like a couple of tasks lined up, and then I know that I'm going to get emails for on behalf of a certain client, and I know that's going to fill my day with the rest of the stuff. But for some people, that can, not being able to plan their day in advance, or, being constantly open all the time to, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? Not having any boundaries in place on times, etc., evenings, weekends, etc., it can cause issues. And you do find that you're people pleasing all the time, accepting blame for things that you haven't necessarily done, just to appease the situation and things like that. So I can understand, and I've spoken to another person who also started as a VA and then has specialized down because they did not like the fact that they were open so much, with a constant barrage of requests for work, timing things in 5, 10, 15-minute blocks and, making up your daily money, potentially with 5-minute tasks sometimes. And I know that's not the way to do it, retainer and everything, all that, but, examples across the board, and, varying hourly rates depending on experience and how long you've had the clients and things like that. It can be quite literally a white knuckle ride, right?
I mean, depending on how deep we want to go here, so for context, I was quite young. So that time you're referring to, I was like 23. So to have so much happen so quickly at such a young age, I'm not sure I was really prepared for it. And, you've said such lovely things about, me having followers and me kind of being a big deal in this space. And we've talked about this before, but that was never my intention. And I didn't know that was happening until I was in it. And so I think it was just so many things. I am a people pleaser, just naturally. And so I didn't really know how to say no to people. So I was very busy all the time. It was taking off way quicker than I thought it would, which obviously is a great thing, but comes with challenges. I also am quite like a quiet, introverted person naturally. And so for me, I really need time by myself. I need time to recharge. I don't like being super social all the time. It's just not who I am. But at that point in my life, I was being asked to do so many things, which again is such a blessing. I'm so grateful for it. But I was doing stuff like all the time. Like I was constantly talking to people, networking, going to events. I almost forced myself to be a person that I just wasn't. And to do that every single day, year after year, you're going to get to a point where you just feel like firstly, I don't know who I am anymore. But secondly, I've created this life that just doesn't even work for me. And I think every day I almost felt like I was getting up in the morning and like putting on a costume to go to work. And then at the end of the day, I'd take the costume off and be like, oh, now I can breathe. And I just did that every day, year after year. And I think I just got to a point where I just could not do that anymore.
Yeah, it's understandable. And like I say, I've spoken to quite a few people who've done the same thing or very similar things. They've had to change the way that their business works for them. And you don't get a manual when you start a business, do you?
No.
I mean, you can you can do business studies at sixth form or, do degrees in certain things, and you can get so much experience in different things. But yeah, I'm going to start a business, and it's not like you've got a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to happen, what clients you're going to end up with, who's going to come from where. You've hopefully got an idea with, your niches and who do you serve and all this, but sometimes you don't necessarily get the people you expect to get, and you don't know who you're going to work with. So yeah, it's you're going into the world blind. Like, what am I going to do? And then with the added pressure of social media, because what better way to sell yourself than on a free platform? And like you say, you have to have this. You have to have all your hats for doing the business yourself. So your accounts, your marketing, the business itself. You're the CEO of your own business. And then you've got to sell yourself as well. And nowadays it's a lot easier, isn't it? People buy from people and, be you, authentic, a few buzzwords to throw around that are going around at the minute. But, back then it was hard. I was on social media quite a lot, and I did mostly pictures, Canva graphics, sole photo on Instagram. I hardly did any video stuff. And I hardly did story. Well, they didn't come to a bit later on anyway. But it was like I didn't know how I was going to portray myself, what I was going to say, what I was going to do. And even back then, my image for my business was shirt and tie. And look at me, I'm a corporate assistant kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I understand exactly not exactly how you felt, but it was a hard world. But you had a couple of newspaper articles as well, didn't you?
Yeah. And I think this is a perfect example of what I was saying, in that I have no desire to be in a newspaper. Like, I can quite confidently sit here and say that now. Like, if someone offered me a TV show, I would say no, because it's just not me. But at the time, I felt like if I can do something and it might do good things for my visibility, and it might help me scale and do all the things I was being told to do, then why wouldn't I? So that was another example of something I said yes to when actually I can't think of much worse. And then having to deal with the consequence of that, like the hate that you get when you're a bit more public, and the fact that you can Google my name and that's still one of the top things that shows up. Like, I can't get away from that. The fact that people I went to school with, or ex-boyfriends and things like that, like, they can see that. It was one of those where I did it because I felt like it was the right thing to do for the business. And I totally forgot about me as the human, and then didn't realize until it was too late.
Yeah, it's so hard. Even starting this podcast, I'm a bit like, I've got to put myself out there. I'm quite an introverted person myself as well. I know it probably doesn't seem like it sometimes, but you're putting yourself out there on a platform or on something, and this is going to be around for, as long as technology survives and YouTube's around or whatever, this is going to be around for forever, basically. And, someone could be like, oh, doesn't he talk funny? Oh, why did he say that? What did he say there? What is that accent? Where's he from? All that type of stuff. Oh, did you see him trip over his words in that episode? And those thoughts all go through your head. But when you actually, I've been lucky enough so far that it's small enough so currently that I haven't had any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's the potential. I always think, oh my God, what am I going to do when that happens, and I'm not very good at arguing in real time. So it's like, with arguing with a troll or whatever, I'm going to be like, oh my God, it's going to take me like 3 weeks to argue with them, like to come up with a response. And we had, but yeah, like I say, I haven't been subject to it, but at the same time, it is a worry. And for someone who has been, subjected to it, I would think, that's an awful thing, and people can be horrible. We had Jess on the show. I think that was last week. I didn't realize this when I'd been introduced to her until I actually asked her what did you do? And she was actually a YouTube influencer. She was a mum blogger, and she said she had to stop because of trolls. Her kids were involved and things like that, and there's people on. There was a certain website that she had a whole page dedicated to her. And it was like, the schoolyard talk was, oh no, my kids go to school with her kids and I can tell you the actual story and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just horrible that people can be so horrible. So yeah, I'm sorry you had those people to deal with. And it certainly at such a young age, it's difficult to deal with. But obviously you've changed your path. And hopefully you're being more you and things are on the up. So that can lead us nicely on to, we'll come back to Virtually Done, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But let's talk about what you wanted to do at school, because I know in there's a couple of sections. We want to talk about your psychology, obviously, because you've not long ago put your final submission in, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But first, go further back to what did you want to do? What did young Jemma want to be when she was at school? And do remember to include your very first business.
Oh gosh, I'd forgotten about that. It's a good job you said that. I mean, this is going to sound really weird in comparison to what I just said, but I actually wanted to be an actress, which is weird because I'm like, why on earth would I want to do that? But I think it was because I got to be somebody else. I got to kind of go to a club and for an hour I would be a character and I wouldn't be quiet, shy, awkward, introverted Jemma anymore. I got to be something different and I really enjoyed that. And I think actually that the reason I so desperately wanted to be an actress was because people kept telling me I couldn't do it. People would say to me, oh no, that's really hard. Like so few people make it, you need to have a plan B. And every time someone would make one of those comments, it solidified, I want to do it because I wanted to prove people wrong. And so I desperately wanted to be an actress. And I really do think it was less about the acting and more about the making a point to everyone who doubted me. And I actually auditioned for a drama school, like a full-time drama school, and I got accepted when I was 16, I think. But that was the point where I actually rejected the offer and started studying psychology instead. So that was kind of when I went on the psychology path, fell in love with that, and then never touched acting again. But yeah, when I was 16, I also started my own business, if I can call it that. I made and sold bunting. So I would literally sit there and hand sew personalized bunting with like kids' names and stuff on it. And now I think about that, I'm like, why on earth was I doing that at 16 when everyone else was out like drinking in fields, on a weekend? But I think I've just always been very entrepreneurial. I'm not very good at sitting and just doing nothing. Like I always want to be working on a project. I want to be achieving something, which I think is a blessing and a curse. But yeah, so I started that business, which weirdly did quite well. People actually wanted stuff from me, which completely threw me. And I just got to the point where I was like, I actually can't hand sew quick enough to fulfill these orders. And so I stopped. But that was kind of my first attempt at starting a business, I suppose. So yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, that's such an interesting story. I think the acting thing, I think a lot of people get the old, you're never going to, it's such a hard thing to get into. You're never going to end up in Hollywood. But people obviously do, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you had that kind of the people saying no, you're not going to do that. You should do something else. But yeah, psychology though. Interesting that you chose psychology based on what people have been telling you about that and how you decided that you were going to prove them wrong. There's a thing for that, right?
So I actually spoke to a careers advisor when I was 16, which I think was just something they made every kid do at school. And I remember telling her my options, and I was like, right, I'm either going to go to drama school or I'm going to go to college. I'm going to do my A-levels. And I thought she was going to say the same thing as everyone else, which is, no one becomes an actress, like go and do the sensible thing. But actually she said, you should probably go and do drama because I don't think you'll cope with A-levels. And I was like, you mean I won't cope? She was like, oh, I just don't think you're right for kind of the academic world. I don't think you'll cope mentally. And then I've literally just lived my life. The way I got here was I've just tried to prove people wrong. I was like, right, well, that's my decision made. I'm going to go do my A-levels then. So I went to college, did my A-levels, fell in love with psychology, and then ended up where I am today. So that was, I would love to say it was more of like a passion choice, but initially it really was don't tell me I can't do something. I'm going to go and do it and prove you wrong.
I'll show you. All right. So psychology-wise, then I think I did tell this joke to last episode. I can't remember what it was. I think it was last episode. But have you heard that joke about Pavlov and his dog?
I've probably heard this one.
Does it not ring a bell? You can use that one if you like.
Thanks. That was like, it's such a dad joke.
Well, I am a dad, so I should be let off. Though I have known that joke longer than I've been a dad. Okay, so presumably then, what was it that you just entered your paper in before September? How wasn't it? You just put in your final submission. Is that your master's in psychology?
Yes, my master's. Yeah.
Okay, so presumably then, from your 16, you went to do A-levels, which would have taken you to 18, where you fell in love with psychology. Presumably then you went to university?
Yeah, so I went and did my degree in psychology, and at the same time started working with young people. This is when I first kind of started mentoring and coaching, and kind of fell in love with that sort of work. And then for the next kind of 3 years while I did my degree, I was sort of working part-time in different welfare roles. So like I would go and work at a summer school in like a welfare manager role or something like that. And then when I graduated, I moved to London, which is another thing people told me, oh, don't do that. It's not, you're not going to like it there. So I went and did it. And I actually started a psychology master's then. I did a forensic psychology master's because I thought I wanted to go into working with criminals. Like I really enjoyed working with like young offenders. So I was doing that and then went through a breakup, kind of threw everything in the bin, left London, moved back in with my parents, kind of went back to zero. And then got a job near where my parents lived, met my current boyfriend, was made redundant. And that was when I kind of went back into, okay, let me kind of figure out this business thing, let me freelance. And then after freelancing and running my business, I went back and did a second master's last September, which is in coaching psychology. And I've just handed in my final piece of work last month. So that's where I am now.
Good. And so the business world that you did in between, was that when you did virtually done that?
Yeah. So I wish my story was like really like nice and neat, but I feel like my story is so messy. I actually started freelancing when I was 16 as well. So when that initial business it wasn't practical, like I enjoyed it, but I couldn't keep working as much as I was. I started freelancing when I was 16 and I kind of kept that up in the background, especially when I lived in London. Like I would do this, freelancing job while I was at work. So I was being paid twice, which I thought was like really clever at the time. And then when I was made redundant, I kind of picked that up again. So I was always freelancing for that whole kind of like 10-year period, but I would just like pick it up depending on what was going on in my life. So when I was made redundant in 2018, I picked it up again more seriously because I just had no other way of making money. And then that was when it kind of got a bit more consistent. And that was when I figured out what a virtual assistant was. And then it was early 2019 that I started Virtually Done.
Because, I mean, essentially it did well, didn't it? Virtually Done.
Yeah, way better than I ever thought it would.
I think at one point your boyfriend was working with you, wasn't he?
Yeah, for about a year.
And then you moved. That's when you moved from like Midlands-ish area down to South Coast-ish area. I'll keep it, fairly vague just in case. So that's how well it went. So I guess then we're at that point then now where, where did you go from virtually done, which was doing well? We know that we've talked about all the issues you had with it. So then where did you go from there to get to Ultimate CEO now?
It was a really hard couple of years, honestly, because like you said, and it was in 2020 that we moved to Devon, which is expensive. We were relying solely on my business's income because my boyfriend had left his job. And so our expenses had risen. There was a lot more responsibility on me. And at the same time, I was realizing I don't think this is what I want to do, but I didn't really have that space to take any time off and figure it out. So on one hand, I was like, I don't think this is right for me. It doesn't feel like the way I wanted it to feel. But also, I've got to pay the bills. And I can't really take any time off. And so it was very difficult. But that was also the year that I made six figures and I won an award. And it was all it was these massive highs and massive lows at the same time. And lots of things that I thought would make me happy happening. And then me being like, oh, this doesn't feel anything like I thought it would feel. And so I kind of put the decision off for a long time. And then toward the end of 2020, I think it was, a few clients started to drop off. Some of it was to do with COVID. Some of it was just natural turnover. I ended a couple of contracts I didn't feel were right for me anymore. And I'd also at this point closed the books already. So I wasn't taking on any new clients. And so I went into 2021. I hadn't actively made a decision, but my client load had gone from 25 to 3 or something. And then over those next few months, there were just different opportunities where I felt like, okay, it's time to end it with this client and this client's moving on. And so before I knew it, it felt like, because I'd refused to make a decision to close down the business, the universe, or whatever you want to call it, had almost made it for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I haven't made the decision, but I've ended up with no clients. I'm not taking on any more. So I suppose I've made the decision to transition into something else. But then it was this huge identity crisis of, well, who am I? And all these people were saying such lovely things like, oh, I love Virtually Done and you're doing amazingly and I want to be like you. But behind the scenes, I was thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I've got no business left and I don't know where I'm going. And it was all very confusing. So it was very messy. It was very messy for a long time. And I think it's important to say that because from the outside, I'm not sure it looked messy. And I want everyone to know that that mess is happening behind the scenes sometimes. And it's okay to feel that. But luckily, in 2020, I had started offering courses and mentoring, coaching. And so I was able to kind of scale what I already had up a little bit more. And I already had a bit of an audience for that. So then it became, okay, let me just do some mentoring with other business owners because I love that. And then it grew from there.
Nice. So, I'm sorry, again, nice is one of my filler words. It's not just don't take it in any other way than it's me acknowledging what I just heard. So Virtually Done then, was it a lot of VAs now, although it's, they do some social media aspects, or, there's the traditional kind of general VA stuff diary management, documents, quotes, etc. Was it a mixture of both? Was it more on the social media side? Was it more on the VA kind of side?
So through 2019, it was a bit of everything because I was kind of just saying yes to everything. I didn't really have a clear direction for the business. In 2020, because it had grown so quickly, I was able to make a bit more, I was able to be pickier with what I said yes to. And so I purely just did VA work for the most part. And I would say my workload in 2020 was probably 60% VA work, 40% sort of mentoring courses and that kind of thing. So then in 2021, when the VA work dropped to 0, I was trying to scale that sort of 40% up to being 100% of the business.
Nice. And did you have associates in Virtually Done as well?
I did for a period of time, yeah, probably for about a year, I want to say. Started with one, grew to maybe 4 of us, plus a VA that I had as well for me. And then it was just kind of scaling that back again as the clients were dropping off. Some of that happened quite naturally during COVID anyway.
Yeah, it was a funny time, obviously. We don't want to go down that route, obviously, because, not very good times. But, okay, so you then moved to business coaching, mentoring, etc., and that's kind of where you're at now. All right. Let's pause that bit there then in Gemma's story, and we'll do the quick fire questions. and then we'll see where we naturally go from there.
Okay, I'm
Perhaps some
scared.
more psychology, and more business mentoring stuff. I want to talk about your podcast as well.
Okay.
So yeah, let's do the quickfire questions now. Get them out of the way.
Mhm.
Well, I say out the way. This is usually the bulk of the show, because you talk and answer, then we find something to talk about down there. So they originally were designed to get to know Jemma a little bit better, humanize Jemma, and then throw in a little bit of admin, because ultimately that's currently my day job. Joe Rogan still hasn't called up, even though I've got 8 published episodes now. But I'm sure after episode 9, he'll be ringing. All right. Question 1 then. So we know that you're 21, Jemma. That was a wink for the listeners rather than the watchers. What's been your favourite age so far?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm actually going to say now, because I just feel like I'm so much more confident in myself. Like, I know what I want. I know what I don't want. I just feel like a total different person than that person who was like 23 starting a business and it was all messy. Even though still a people pleaser, I can definitely say no now. And I think that's an age thing.
Yeah, I like it. Wizened with age, yeah.
Yeah.
Wizened, one of the two. Okay, question 2. Question 2. What is your favourite quote? This could be a movie quote, a meme, a motivational quote, or any other quote you can think of.
Okay, so when I was in Italy, there was a poster on the wall that said something in Italian that I don't remember, but the translation was living life in pink. And it basically meant sort of like, when people talk about rose-tinted glasses, it was like living your life that way. And I love that because I love pink and people always associate me with pink, but also I'm quite a positive person, and not in a delusional way, but in a sort of, I'm always going to look at the bright side of a situation, glass half full. And I just love that. I can't remember what it was in Italian, but I just remember thinking, I want to live my life in pink like that. And that's always stuck with me.
I like it. If I remember, when I do the show notes for this, I'll look it up and I'll pop it as one of the sound bites or whatever it is, in Italian, if I remember. So Riverside AI, if you're listening, remind me when I do the show notes. It's not going to, I'm going to forget, but I tried. Okay, question 3. Google Suite or Microsoft 365?
Google.
Oh, you disappoint me.
Sorry.
It's because you're younger. It's because you're younger. I'm sure that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, Google's great, right? Integrations, all in one place, free.
I think it's just, I don't know. I don't have a reason. I haven't compared the two. I just feel like I stuck with, there was that time, wasn't there? I don't know if you still do have to do this, but when you got your mobile phone, you had to create a Google account in order to
I had one of those, yeah.
Yeah. And so at some point I had to create a Gmail, and then I kind of just got stuck there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, way back when, I think it was my first Samsung, which is the phone I had after my second BlackBerry. I had to create a Google account, and that must be somewhere between 2010 and 2013. Because 2015, I think I got my first iPhone. So yeah, and so I ended up with a Google Mail from that. I think it said you must create a Google account, and then I did.
Yeah.
Still use it, but I do. Yeah, Microsoft. I think it's an age thing. I think we had that in the 90s. That's what it was. That's all we had at school. No Google Classroom, no nothing. All Microsoft. I like it. I like it. I like the familiarity of it. And it disappoints me when people say Google Suite. Now, I use both. As I'm sure you can imagine, some clients use Google, some clients use Microsoft. But there you go. Jemma likes Google Suite. All right, question 4. I've changed this slightly, so this is more for the benefit of the listeners. The listeners or the watchers that are still here at like episode 22, 23, whichever one this is. So the question used to be, if you were stranded on a desert island, what app could you not live without? But I'm going to cut it down. So it's just, what app could you not live without?
I feel like I'm going to say Instagram, and I kind of hate that that's my answer.
I love that it's the Instagram because it's a love-hate relationship, right?
And I think my business still does run quite a lot on there, as much as we could dive into that whole conversation of not having a business that relies on Instagram. That is where my people are, and it's where I've met a lot of my friends. And could I survive without it? Yes, but I think it would massively impact my life.
Yeah, it ticks all the boxes, doesn't it? You've got your business, you've got your community that you talk to, you've got entertainment that you can scroll for hours, whether it be pictures, reels. But it's no good for us.
No, it's definitely a love-hate, like you say.
I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I mean, that's how we've met. That's how we've been speaking. That's how I've met a lot of my guests that have been on the show. Through basically everything through my business. And the majority of it has all come through Instagram. And, I spend enough time on there that people know that I'm on there and they get to know me through the DMs and things like that. And I always think when people say produce content rather than consuming it, I couldn't just make a post and then post it and then leave Instagram for the rest of the day. Because, how do you know what everyone else has been up to? And, you miss out on that communication. It's only one-sided, isn't it? You just rock up, hello, here's my latest post. And then see you later. And then, tomorrow you have a quick look to see how it's going.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do that. But at the same time, I realise that it's not great to be spending extra time on social media. So, like you say, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I will say my relationship with it has changed. I probably spend maybe an hour on Instagram a day now, and that's on a day where I'm posting and I'm active. It used to be closer to 5 or 6, which is just insane. And I know my business was a lot of that, but to be on Instagram for that long every single day is it's not going to do good things for you, is it?
No, I think there's a line somewhere, isn't there, where it's productive, or some of it's research, some of it's keeping up current trends, but then sometimes you're just consuming and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of the trolls, that's where they come from. Cool. Yeah, Instagram would be my choice too. Just a little bit backstory for that question. We got too focused on if you're stranded on a desert island. And it was all a bit like, did your phone have batteries? Your phone waterproof? Did it survive the drop? Why did you end up on a desert island? And so it was this is too complicated. And I think it was the last episode I was on. I don't remember if I was saying it during the recording or if I was talking about it afterwards. But it's like when when all the planes came back in the Second World War with bullet holes in, they realised that they were all thinking, oh, well, we need to put more armour on the plane where the bullet holes are. But someone actually realised that the planes that didn't make it back were the ones that had bullet holes elsewhere. So what they did was they reinforced where the bullet holes weren't, because the plane could obviously fly with the bullet holes where they were. And that's the analogy of how we got to. It took 20 episodes, but that's how we got to where we are with that question now, is that it was a lack of rather than an addition of the desert island. So yeah, we were basically I was like, right, I'm going to rephrase this. People are getting confused. All right, let's move on to question 5. How many emails do you have on your phone that are unread right now?
Oh, let me have a look. Probably not many. I'm always aiming for 0. 0.
Nice. I like it.
Stress if I have 1. So I'm always trying to keep inbox 0. Which is frustrating because you send an email and then people reply. So it never sits at 0.
So your inbox then, have you got one of those clear empty inboxes that say you are done for the day? So if you need something important, you file it elsewhere and then it's like you're done. Or do you have them kind of lined up, organised chaos, as it were?
No, it's very organised. I have folders for everything. I respond to people same day. unless I'm somewhere else. Yeah, I just don't like I want to open it up and see that I've got nothing that I need to do today. Whereas if I know there's something sat there, I'm going to think about it. So it either gets replied to or it gets deleted if it's nothing exciting, or it gets folded somewhere.
Folded. Yeah, I like it. Interestingly, I was having a conversation a few days ago, and someone's recently taken up the delete at the end of the day emails, which I can see like it being a good thing, because the majority of the time people do chase up.
Yeah.
So it's like, did you get my email? It's a copy attached, and you're like, oh yeah, there you go, and a clear inbox at the end of the day. But at the same time, I'm a bit like, oh no, what if something important goes missing?
That would scare me a bit, I think.
I think so. I can see the merits of it, but at the same time, I'd be like, no, I don't think so. What if I need that in 8 years' time when someone says, why did you not respond to my email 8 years ago? I'm like, actually, I did. It's here, see?
That would be more stressful to me, I think, than having a full inbox.
Yes, I think so. Okay, question number 6. This one's always a bit funny. It could land, it could not. We're going to ask it anyway.
Okay, go for it.
Feel free to just be like, no. So if you could afford any car, no need to worry about buying it, maintenance, tires, any of that, what car would you have?
This is probably a really boring answer, but it would be a Mini, a more up-to-date version of what we already have. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Minis, and I was like, when I'm older, I will have a Mini. And then this is a really cute story. My boyfriend a few years ago bought me a Mini. It was like secondhand off someone he knew, but it was like a Christmas present. And I was like, oh, you've just like satisfied that tiny little girl who wanted a Mini. But yeah, I would just literally get an updated version of the Mini that we already have.
Nice. Not the first person to answer a Mini.
There's something about them that I just think, oh, that's a cute car.
I passed my test in the Mini Cooper.
Did you?
The new style ones, not the old style ones. I'm not that old. Yeah, it was it lime green and purple?
Cool.
Purple body, lime green roof. Can't remember. There was a special edition one, 2001, the model of the car.
That feels very you.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name. He was a driving instructor and a web designer. The company was called One Way, so he was at the front of the Yellow Pages because they did numbers first. Obviously, this was like 2003. I passed my test, so we still had the Yellow Pages back then and the phone book. Not like Google for everything nowadays. I can't remember his name though. I'm gonna have to think about that. That'll come to me like 2:00 in the morning. Was I going to tell you more about Minis? I actually went to, before I was self-employed, I worked for BMW Motorrad retailer. So I had done some training at the BMW training place in Reading, which actually I did the service advisors course. It was the first year they'd run it. And I think, don't tell anyone, but I think I got the highest score. Because they did say only one person got over 75, I think. And we'd all passed, but one person got over 75, and I think I got 78. So I think I won.
Ooh, that's like CV worthy. That I'd have that on your CV.
It's on my LinkedIn, my little BMW badge. But the reason I'm telling you this is obviously BMW Minis are made by BMW now. And on one of the days, we had to sit in the mini lounge. Which is very nice, just pictures of Minis everywhere and stuff like that. But yeah, there you go. Fun story for you.
I love them. They make me really happy. I don't know if it's like, sometimes you have those nostalgic childhood things that just bring you joy. I think it's just one of those for me. And I'm not really a person who likes things anyway. Like if I had loads of money, I wouldn't live much differently. I wouldn't have many things. So as cars, I wouldn't get anything fancy or anything like sporty, but that would make me really happy, I think, just to have a brand new shiny Mini on the drive.
Yeah, I think I'm very similar in that, if I had lots of more money, I wouldn't go extravagant with it, because I think some people go off and win the lottery and buy a massive mansion, don't they? But I'm like, I wonder how much electric all those lights cost, or how much it costs to heat the thing, and like if it's got a pool as well. Yeah, and cleaning it, the pool. if that's got to be heated and stuff, and pool house, no. I'm like, no, I don't think so. There is aspirations that we have a Radmobile soon.
Love it.
And it's going to be like a, mid to somewhere maybe from the late 90s, maybe early 2010s. Just depends on which model we go for. Just kind of like, that Fast and Furious style, under neons, all sign written up, big exhaust, little spoiler, The only problem with that is obviously I'm 6'1", and so we want to find like a mini little sports car that will look great, and everyone will be like, there goes the Radmobile. But at the same time, I need to be able to fit in it and be able to turn the steering wheel and stuff.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go crazy if I won the lottery. But there'd be signs, All right, that's quick questions done. I think we got through those roads really quickly.
I was scared. I thought you were going to ask me like really scary things, so I feel better now. I can breathe out.
Good. Breathe out. Do. Okay, so let's talk about your podcast. Because that's how you're on this podcast, is I was on your podcast. Well, I can't remember how... Did you put a thing for guests in an email or something? Because you had...
Yeah.
You had the podcast... Did you have a podcast originally that did like two series or two series? Then you changed it, didn't you? So this time it's more like based on business owners and the realities of being in business, rather than the social media, the showcase reel of being in business. The look at me, I'm a 6-figure business owner. It's more like yes, it is it is a roller coaster, and quite frankly, the majority of the time, I want to go and get a job. That's it now, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've had the podcast for quite a long time. I can't remember when I actually started it, but it was years ago. And it didn't really have a purpose. It was more of just a fun experiment for me. So I would just record what I wanted to record. If someone asked to be on it, I'd be like, yeah, sure. So there are some good episodes with some really interesting people, but I just really felt like, firstly, it was lacking a purpose, but also we were just seeing so many of these shiny conversations about money and lifestyle. And I just was like, I am really craving honesty. But I want to listen to people's really honest experiences. And I was having those conversations with my business friends. And I was thinking, like, there must be so many other people who have similar stories who aren't sharing them anywhere. So I kind of rebranded it, which is when you would have been recording with me, which was like 6 months ago, I want to say, something like that, maybe 4 months ago.
Yeah, it was quite a while.
Yeah, so I kind of brought it back and was like, look, I'm going to go a different direction. It's going to be very honest conversations. We're going to talk about the ups and downs, not in like a sad way, because I think business is amazing. And like I said, I tend to look at the positive side of everything, but just the reality of like, sometimes there's hard days. Sometimes you go through things that you don't know how to handle. Sometimes you do just think, is this worth it? And that's all just part of the journey, because I think there are so many people out there looking at perfect, shiny business owners thinking, oh, well, mine doesn't look like that, so I must be doing something wrong. When actually it's just you're comparing one part of your business to someone else's, perfect shiny front, which is not the same as, the behind the scenes. So yeah, we just talk about the behind the scenes, the realities, the what's going on, the mistakes, all that kind of stuff. And it feels really good to have a place to have those honest conversations.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it. And like you say, you do find yourself comparing yourself. That works well, Richard. Well done with your words. You find yourself comparing to other people on the internet, don't you?
Yeah.
I can't remember if I spoke about this on the last podcast, but I was listening to another podcast recently, and it was a VA guest. She's been doing it like 2 years, 1 year full time. She's got 8 or 9 associates. Seems to be doing really well for herself. Raking it in inverted commas. And then I'm thinking, I've been in business, I've been fully self-employed for nearly 4 years. And I think, actually, I've not got 9 associates. Why haven't I even got 1 associate? And I sat there for ages, just like, what's going on? What is it? Me? Is it them? Is it is it the way I portray myself online? Is it the way I am with people? And But actually, I kind of sat myself down. I said, what are you talking about? I'm sure there's plenty of good stuff you've done, or this, that, and the other. But you just look at people and the portrayal of them online, and you think, oh well, why haven't I done that yet, or whatever. But it's not always the case, and they are giving it that show reel, aren't they? Showing you all the good bits. It's like I think it was 2 years ago, was it? In summer on LinkedIn, it was every second person on LinkedIn was, I'm a 6-figure business coach, and you must do cold showers in the morning. You must get up at 5 a.m. club, isn't it? And you must be your authentic self. And I got to the point where I was just like looking at LinkedIn, and I was just like, I'm done. Even Instagram, I was like, right, I'm away, I'm off. And there's a reel on my grid somewhere where I walk in through a door and it says, I guess you wonder where I've been. And it's like, I'm back. I was like, yeah, I took a break because I was sick of watching the same people say the same things all the time. Come and buy my book, come and buy my, £5,000 coaching course. I will turn you into a 6-figure business. And I just had enough of it. So I just turned it off for a bit, came back. Luckily, the message had kind of changed a little bit. But now I just, like, there's some people on there. One of the ones I made, well, no, I won't say anything there just in case. I recently realized that I may have implied something on one of my other episodes. I think I'm going to have to delete because of the way it implies something, the way I've said it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I better delete that bit. And I don't want to do the same again here. So I will leave it at, there are certain individuals that I followed for quite a long time that are spouting certain messages who are, they approach you in the DMs and you think they're trying to be your friend, but actually they're just trying to sell you your course. And I started to ignore their posts. And I'm like the number one fanboy for all people in my circle. If I see your post, I like it straight away. I haven't even read it. I just like it. Comment on it. I'll be like, yes, sister, or yes, brother. You go, girl, all that stuff. But this one, I'm like, no, you're out. Sorry. If there is a little red book, maybe they're going in it.
I think we've all got those people, and I do think, having been a VA previously, you see both sides of business. And I think a lot of the VAs I've spoken to over the years, they will have a story of a person where on the surface it was all perfect and shiny and great. And then they start working with that person, and behind the scenes, it's a shit show. And it's, what they're saying is not what they're practicing. And I think I try and remind myself in those comparison moments, firstly, that we don't know the reality. We don't know what we're comparing to because we're already seeing part of it. But this is also one of the reasons I went into doing my psychology masters again, because there is a lot of advice out there that I think, oh my goodness, that's bad advice. And I know everyone can do what they want to do. And I'm very much for everyone builds a very unique individual business. And I don't think there's a one size fits all. But also I sometimes see quite unethical stuff that makes me so uncomfortable, because I'm thinking there are probably people in that person's audience seeing this post, for example, and then feeling really, really bad about themselves. And that doesn't sit well with me. And that was one of the reasons I actually went back to psychology, was because I was seeing all this stuff and I was like, I don't feel comfortable with what I'm seeing. I want to make sure that I'm not doing that and I'm creating a sort of safe space. So yeah, I think there's always takeaways from it.
Yeah, I think you did a post recently on one side doesn't fit all. Was that you?
Possibly. It's one of the things I do talk about. Yeah,
I think it was you. But yeah, if it was you, I really resonated with it. Because, there's lots of, like you say, there's all these coaches and they think because they've done it, they can pass it on to someone else. And, that doesn't work for some people. Some people are morning people, some people are night people, some people, some people are 2 o'clock till 4 o'clock people as their busy, productive time. And if you can't apply that to, some people have kids, some people don't, some people have other responsibilities, insert here, And so you can't just be like, oh, well, I did it this way, so that's the way it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. I've used the example before of a post I saw a while ago, and it basically said, if you're not rich, it's because you're lazy. And I just thought, I mean, there is so much more to be said about that, but it just made me feel bad for the people who might be trying their hardest. They've got so many things going on. They might have a full-time job. They might be a single mum or a single dad. They might have various different illnesses, and they're coming online. They're seeing this post, and rather than being motivated, they go offline and feel rubbish about themselves and feel like, oh, this is a me problem. I'm lazy, when it's quite often not that. And I just think, I know we can't control what other people say, and I'm sure that post did motivate some people. But yeah, I think there's always going to be stuff that we disagree with and that we're not, fully on board with. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm not as active on social media anymore, because I look around and I just think that's not how I want to motivate people and make people feel good.
Yeah, it's I can't remember the word for it. It's a certain tactic, isn't it? That they're using. But I can't remember what it is. That's not cool. No, not cool, man. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, so let's talk about then what if you could do anything when you grow up. Not necessarily advised growing up, but if you could, and if you do, what would you do?
I don't know if I have the answer to that. And I think that comes back to what I said earlier about being in that messy middle. I think I would have had answers 6 months ago, but I'm starting to feel a little bit like maybe I'm not onto a completely new thing, because I love coaching and I want to coach, but maybe that looks different going forwards, and I'm still figuring out what that is. So honestly, other than the basics of I want to be happy, I want to be healthy, I want to be really happy with my life. Other than that, I don't know.
I love that answer. A lot of the time, the answer, I asked this question with regard to thinking people would be like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a prime minister, I want to be president of the United States. We've not had any American guests on, so that's unlikely. But you know what I mean. And actually, a lot of people have said that they would like to do what they do now. They're in a great space. But I love the fact that you know what direction you're heading, but you don't know what it looks like yet.
Mm.
And I feel that, and I know what you mean with this podcast. I started it for just to start some conversations, put my face on the internet a bit more, and so people can get to know Richard as he talks to other people. And I was just like, just give it a bash, it'll be all right. And I'm surprised how many episodes I've done already, considering I started recording on the 2nd of August, and we're at the end of October now, and I think I've done 25 recordings, I think. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I never expected it to be I didn't think I was going to be a professional podcaster or anything, or I didn't think that I'd be able to monetize it or anything. Although I have joked about it in the last couple of episodes, so people should probably ignore those, because we're still not there. But it is something. It started something, and now I'm looking at doing vlogs and stuff, and I'm looking at how to do different long form content and stuff like that. Yes, ultimately, I'm still the paperwork guy or the admin guy, but who knows what the possibilities are in the future. And so I feel the same as you. There's something there, and there's a direction, but there's no map.
Yeah,
so
and
I
was talking to a client about this recently, because we were talking about the vision and what you're doing in your business, and one of the things I was saying to her was my vision has remained pretty consistent, and that is, on paper, I don't necessarily say this online as my messaging, but behind the scenes, my thing is I want to help people thrive with psychology. The way that I do that is going to change across my lifetime. I could do that by doing some voluntary work with a local school. I could do that by working with offenders. I could do that by coaching online business owners. There are so many ways I can fulfill that thing that I want to do. And so that has stayed the same and has been the same for, 10, 15 years. But yeah, it's the way that I do that I think is changing. And there was part of me, that saw this podcast in my calendar this week. And I was like, does it make sense for me to be recording a podcast when most people go on a podcast to say, come and follow me because I'm doing X, Y, and Z and I have this freebie and come and work with me. And I'm going to come on and say, I'm in the middle. I don't know. Like, I kind of don't like, come and follow me. Like, I post content and you can come on the journey, but I don't have anything to give you. But then I was like, well, that's kind of the part that I want to share. Like, I want to be like, this isn't neat. It's not perfect. I am in the middle. It's not clear. But this is part of the business journey as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's, this show was designed to be all about those journeys for people.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you get to where you are now? What interesting things affected you in such and such a ways? And how did you, what changed your path, as it were, from what you wanted or expected? And you see analogies of it online, don't you? Like going up a mountain and, it's like the simple path is straight up. But no, you fall into a ditch and you're up and down and you got to go over those crags and you got to go up. And I think, yours is, you know where you want to go. You're just not clear on which route you're going to presently take, which I think is perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you never get that from a business owner because they're usually too scared to say, well, actually, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this for now. And then, we'll see where it goes. Because, that doesn't go with your 1 week plan, your 1 month plan, your 1 year plan, your 5 year plan. And so it's perceived as, well, you can't do that if you've not got a 5 year plan, or what you're going to do next week and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So great answer. I like it.
Yeah,
I think thank you for sharing
it's important to talk about because, there's this fear, I think, of if we share that and we say, I don't really know what I'm doing, or, this thing didn't work out in the way I wanted it to. There is this fear that takes away from your ability to do the work that you do. And it makes you less legit in some way. But actually, I think it's the opposite. I would much prefer to work with someone who is very open and honest and human than work with somebody who is acting like they are perfect and know everything all the time, because we all know that's never going to be true. That's never going to be the full picture. And while I totally appreciate not everyone wants to share the messy thing, and that's totally fine, it really depends on your business and brand. I think anyone who can see someone like me talking about the messiness and the lack of clarity and thinks, oh, she'd be a bad coach, not my person. Because the reality is everything we go through, whether you're a coach or a VA or something else, it adds to how good you are at what you do. And so I think actually by talking more honestly, all it does is bring in more aligned people into my world. And that has been a real blessing for me.
Yeah, I like it. It is that fear, isn't it? That, if I say it's messy, then people are going, well, why should I work with them?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I first started, and we had the Zoom network and everything, I'd say, oh, you're a virtual assistant or a freelance administrator or whatever. You must be very organized. I'm like, I'm not. And like, well, how did you do it then? I'm like, systems and a good memory. A good memory that's like, did you do that job today? Did you do that job? And it's like, no, I didn't do that job, but I'm going to do it in a minute. And then, or daily organization. But you can't go around being like, well, no, I'm not organized. Because, and half the businesses in the space have organized in the title.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but you can't, at the time, I couldn't say that. Because then how would I get clients?
Yeah.
Because they'd be like, well, if he's not organized, what's he going to do for me?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter that, well, to a point I'm organised, but not in the way you'd think I am. But I get all their work done to a good standard. I answer the phone calls to them and answer to their clients and answer all their questions. But is it done in a super methodical, sub-task list and all that type of way? No, it's not. But you can't say that when you're looking for clients, because people take things the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the message you're putting out there, Jemma. That things are messy. We are all human. To sum up, I think that's the succinct message that you're going for there. I heard that one yesterday, so I thought I'd throw that in. I think that's a nice place for us to wrap up the main show.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would like to tell people where they can find you,
yep,
do include details of your podcast. You can do that bit now.
Okay. I love that you prompted me, and it's like what I'm going to forget. And I love that you're prompting me on the things that I'm like, definitely would have forgot. Podcast is called Behind the Business. because it goes behind the business. Instagram, you can follow me at The Ultimate CEO, but I also have my personal account, which is Jemma Broadstock, where I haven't been talking about much, but I will be soon. I have a plan for that account. So if you kind of want to see behind the scenes of more general life as an entrepreneur, definitely follow that. But for any services or anything for my coaching, theultimateceo.co is the place to go. And also, if you can't remember all those links, just go to theultimateceo.co and you'll get all the other links on there.
Perfect. Well done. Okay, cool. So great to talk to you, Jemma. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Always a pleasure. And we've talked a few times now. We didn't go. We went like 4 years. Well, 3.5 years. Was it? No, 4. Yeah, 4 years. So February 2020 and then we've spoken like, I don't know, what is it, 3 times in the last 8 months or something?
Mm-hmm.
At least. Yeah, crazy times. All right. Okay, if you're still with us at this point, I really appreciate you listening or watching, depending on how you're consuming this. Don't forget, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you're only listening to the podcast, you can watch the videos too. But otherwise, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the guests that have come on. Thank you to Jemma again. And I'll be back next week with a different guest. But in the interim, peace out.
Thanks for joining us on Rad-Ventures. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite platform. Always happy to chat, so hit me up in the DMs, and I'll see you on the next Rad-Venture.